How you doing, YouTube? Matt One Massive Beer Reviews. Back with yet another review. A little bit of Russian Imperial Stout. Or should I say Imperial Russian Stout. In the form of Stone Brewing. It is their Totalitarian Imperial Russian Stout. It's been a while since I've done a Stone beer. Just haven't done one. There have been some bits and pieces of Stone stuff I've drank over the past, year or so. Just haven't reviewed one. But Stone actually reached out to me and like, hey man, there is a Russian Imperial Stout. Never got anything from Stone before. But they just kind of cold called, and I think they did with a couple of people, so I'm not unique in that sense. But like, hey man, Russian Imperial Stout. We like their reviews. We want to know what you think. And they're like, we made this with nut butter. And did like not necessarily that they made this beer with nut butter. They actually did like kind of like a pairing thing with it, where they actually like made nut butter in the same vein they made this beer. And they said, hey man, I'd love to send you this and nut butter, and we'd love for you to review them. And I said, hey, that would be awesome, but unfortunately I can't do nut butter because that's just weird for me because I don't do the food stuff. But they sent it anyway, and they said, hey, have fun, drink the beer, and let us know what you think. And I am doing that. And I'm kind of in the mood for a Russian Imperial Stout. I'm very choosy and picky about my Russian Imperial Stout, so hopefully this goes the way I hope it does, which is tasty, which is what we all want things to go. Anyway, what does it say on here? It says rationed release. It's their Stone Totalitarian Imperial Russian Stout. It's bespoke totalitarianism for the proletariat diaspora. 10.6% alcohol by volume. Stone Brewing Escadino. I'm going to read this in the back. They have story time. They always have story time. I'll try to rip through it as fast as I can. It says here, it's a Stone Totalitarian Imperial Russian Stout pours like a cast shadow of a murky, deep blackness in your snifter. Go ahead, gaze in an impenetrable well of darkness in your hand. That daunting fear creeping in your soul is the abyss staring back. Perhaps you will never overcome its ponderous, pervasive presence, or perhaps feel a quickening of your blood, and with heart pumping and thumping in your chest, you'll struggle for headway against the dark beast in your hand. One freedom-fighting sip at a time, emboldened that you're unfurled the banner of resistance, you'll pour for others, inviting them to join in your righteous fight against oppression. As darkness in your glass gives way to the light, you'll find yourself relishing in the glory of the struggle and eventually victory, and the right to fight the darkness again. A whole bunch of words. I kind of messed up on commas and periods there, but you get the point. And label-wise, it's alright. Now, here's the thing. Label-wise is pretty freaking cool. My problem is, Stone, it's a peelable label. One of the coolest things about Stone, and one of the things I loved about Stone back in the day, was that they screen printed all their bottles. They don't do that anymore. Does that make the beer taste any better? No. But I still dug it. So, I will talk about it. Here we go. Now, Russian Imperial Stout. We have here, they don't put tasting notes or ingredients on here. They're just saying it's a Russian Imperial Stout. Now, what I expect from my Russian Imperial Stouts is rich, deep, dense darkness, maltiness, a skosh of bittering astringency. Nothing too crazy, just enough to bounce off the sweetness, to where pretty much you get predominantly sweetness. And I always like the ones that do it well, the ones that really do it well. Your Black Alberts of the world, your Courages of the world. This nice kind of cherry cordial vibe. Now, there is another vein of the Russian Imperial Stout out there. You get it from some people like Dumoulin does it, or whether it be North Coast, and there's a lot of other breweries that do it. This huge, bittering Russian Imperial Stout. That is not, to me, the soul of a Russian Imperial Stout the way it should be. It doesn't necessarily make it a bad beer, but I hope this skews in the way of the old world, the way Russian Imperial Stouts have been, originally were, what I think should be. But anyway, index finger, infinite creaminess. I mean, sleep on a thing all day. Malted malt ball in color. Rye bubbles throughout. And guess what? She be dark. So she definitely has the look of a Russian Imperial Stout. Let's see what this nose have. It's going to be the telltale right here. I said it was going to be a telltale. I could be wrong because I'm not really getting much in there. Being soft roasted malts. Soft roasted malts, a little bit of baker's chocolate. Their nose is really kind of muted. There's really not much there. If you told me to sniff this and you said, hey, what is this beer? How big is this beer? I'd be like, probably a little bit, a tiny little porter or a little stout, like a smaller sub 8% stout. Really not getting much there in the nose. And I'm really trying to yank it out of there at this point. It doesn't smell bad. It just smells muted. Just, just soft. Roasted malts, soft chocolate, baker's chocolate. That's pretty much it. Let's see what you got. Cheers. Kind of follows suit. Definitely on the bittering side of things. Definitely on the bittering side of things. But not that big. Less than what you get from your North Coast of the world, your old Rasputins of the world. It's very much soft baker's chocolate all over the place. I'm getting it from roasted malts. I'm getting it throughout the beer in general. There's a soft creaminess to it. Kind of on the edges. Almost milk stout like. But it doesn't have that kind of lactose kind of sweetness to it. Nice body. Nice creaminess to it. It's not the thickest, densest beer in the history of mankind. But it's nice. Got a nice mouthfeel to it. It just tastes more. There's a little bit of ashiness, a little bit of dryness to it. It tastes like a really kind of jacked up version of almost an export stout than a Russian Imperial stout. The way the mouthfeel comes off, the way the taste come off with that roasted malt and a little bit of soft kind of ashiness I can get from like export stouts every now and then. It doesn't really come off much like a Russian Imperial or an Imperial Russian stout. It's not bad. It's definitely not a negative beer. Let's scratch that, the probably. I'm pretty sure this would actually age into something quite nice, which is a great thing about a lot of stone beers. It sucks for them, but a lot of stone beers end up sitting on the shelves by me. And a lot of their beers age absolutely perfectly. So it's one of those, scratch off another one for Stone, and a beer that would probably end up kind of growing with time. But it does lack a little bit of kind of not cohesiveness, because it's not like I'm looking for super balance in my Russian Imperial stouts. I'm just looking for a little bit more. It seems like there's too much on one end of the spectrum. That bittering, astringent, a little bit of soft baker's chocolate. Everything's kind of non-sweet. Not that I want the beer to be overly sweet, but it's like, a little bit of bittering, astringency, a little bit of roasted malt over there, a little bit of baker's chocolate. It's all powdery, soft, non-sweet components. I need something to balance it off. I'm not really getting it on the other end. Yeah. It's more there's a little bit of brown sugar component in there, so I'm not saying it's not totally void of sweetness. It just lacks a little bit for me. I'm digging, trying to find bits and pieces of it, which is fun. It's making me do that and wants me to do that, so that in itself is kind of cool, but it's okay. Again, I wouldn't call it a Russian Imperial Stout. For me, if you love the North Coast the old Rasputins of the world, and you drink this, I could see you being like, okay, it kind of tastes like a Russian Imperial Stout, just not where it should be for me. As someone who doesn't view that as a quintessential Russian Imperial Stout, it tastes like more of like a really jacked up kind of densified, there's a word for you, kind of export stout more than anything else. Imperial export stout, there you go. But yeah, it lacks that kind of sweetness to balance off that dryness and bitterness, while at the same time missing that thing that really does it for me when it comes to Russian Imperial Stouts, with that little bit of kind of cherry cordial component. So, yeah, not a bad beer. Okay beer. Tasty. Ageable, let's put it that way. The bottling date on this says February 5th, so it didn't even leave them. Didn't even get sent out. At least to me, it didn't get sent out till, almost 3 months. Let's put it that way. So I don't know if they want to have a little bit of age on it, or they just ended up sending it out after it hit market. I have no idea. But it's okay. It's more of a beer that, if you watch this video, and this is 2018, April 2018, and it's 3 years from now, and you see one of these on the shelves, and you're like, oh, that was 3 years ago. Yes, now you pick this beer up. Give this beer 3 to 5 years, and I think it'd turn into something pretty damn fucking fantastic. Other than that, it's pretty middle of the road. Not much to it. I wouldn't say don't pick it up, but at the same time, it's not something I'd clamor for either. So let's talk about it. Is it one of the better Russian Imperial Stouts I've had as of late? No. Actually, you know what? It would probably default into yes, just because I haven't had a ton as of late. But at the same time, it's just kind of it's Switzerland. It's neutral. It doesn't excite me, nor does it offend me. It's just kind of like, okay, it's there. It's beer. It's a stout, and there's bittering involved. Value and availability, no idea. Like I said, it was given to me. I'm lucky enough for that to happen. And leave you with, if you like, what will you like this? If you like North Coast Old, I want to say Old Stock, which I love, Old Rasputin. But you want something a bit different, maybe a little bit less on the bittering side, but at the same time the same ABV. It's kind of that bittering end of Russian Imperial Stout that I just not the biggest fan of, to be perfectly honest with you. But I can discern the difference between a well-made beer and a not well-made beer, whether or not I'm a fan of that style or not. So it's, like I said, it's fine, it's well-made. It's just not the thing that would tickle me pink, especially when it comes to Russian Imperial Stout. Or conversely, like I said earlier, if you are a big kind of export stout kind of fan, but you want something that's more like kind of jacked up on steroids, this is your beer. And leave you with that. There you go. So there you go. Down there, if you want to talk about it, type Massive Beers into Google. You can find me doing the social media stuff. Type Beer Massive into Google, and you can see me doing the podcasting stuff. And hopefully you guys enjoyed the review. Hopefully enjoying a nice big Russian Imperial Stout right now, and hopefully see you next time. Cheers.